of British American football, BAFA, I want to ask you, what changes have you seen, right? The discipline in the game, the work ethic off the field to prepare yourself to play the game.
I wanted to play that game. I didn't tell you about my story when I went to college in the US, but I wanted to play the game so bad and learn the game so bad to the point where I was on one meal a day and going to college.
4 teams, geographically based all the way up and down, Great Britain, right? There has to be funding. There has to be, obviously, to put a camera in front of it, it has to look like good football, right? So there has to be funding for these teams to look good. So you can put the banners around the stadium, and there has to be also a massive marketing plan around this to drive.
That's the product. That's what you need to do.
Now there's so many opportunities for these players to go, but they don't want to work for it.
Generation after generation after generation. There's a bunch of us who have just got used to mediocrity almost. We've just got used to, that happened in the league because that's how the league is. Like, this pitch isn't great enough. I almost feel like you're kind of not conditioned, but you're kind of on the mindset of, well, it's not great in the first place, so I'm not really going to bother to try and get back to the next level.
In, bro.
Do you see what? That's fine, but there's a bunch of us who want to do more. But the general one, I just feel like where they've been so not conditioned, but so used to the
norm,
the norm, which which isn't great. It forms part of the reason why we kept going for so long as well, because we were actually genuinely wanting to change that perception and we wanted to bring it back to the glory days.
Right, so I want to throw the dice. Let me throw the dice, man. So, this is George on Sports. So behind the scenes, though, bro, behind the scenes, we know that, with regards to your presence on social media around sports, I can clearly see it on Insta, etc. That you're growing at an amazing rate. But what is George on Sports all about? Give us a 360, bro, because I know that it seems like this is a full-time job with regards to the amount of content that you're putting out there, and the different places that you're going. But so could you share with us, give us a good 360 of Mr. George on Sports?
Okay. So first and foremost, I'm a dad, got 2 young kids, 2 young boys. I was chatting with Rael before we started recording. 2 young kids, so married as well, a young family, and sport has always been my thing from day one.
Congrats, bro. Congrats.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Nice.
They keep me busy, trust me.
We know. We've been there.
For real. All right, so George on Sports. So it started with X's and O's, really, truly, and for first and foremost, X's and O's, which you may or may not have seen. There was 8 of us, 7, 8 of us. We all met playing the game in America.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that until you said, bro, because I only saw 3 ever.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't realize that. But let me go back one. So in terms of American football, because this is where I came from, I used to play rugby back at in 6th form. That was my sport. And I went to uni in Brighton. We were known as Brighton Tsunami, now they're known as Brighton Panthers. And I discovered the sport kind of by accident because I was going there to play rugby, but the rugby team were too far from where I lived. So the next best contact sport I could see was American football. So I picked it up at 18 years old, which is technically very late in this country or anywhere, to be fair. And then never looked back. I played it for 3 years at uni. After uni, I moved to Kent, where I'm at now. So I played for Kent Exiles. At the time when I joined, they were in Div 2. And then we moved up to, eventually worked our way up to the Prem which was great to do, to be able to, start in Div 2 and work ourselves all the way up to the Prem.
Yeah.
Great team, great people, great coaches. One of the best teams, one of the better teams, one of the best run teams in the country, and they still are. And in terms of X's and O's, all of us met at Kent Exiles. We all met together, just 8 of us brothers playing the game, the ins and outs of the sport, the training, the classroom, hitting the gym, and everything that comes with it. And I think it's sort of what we like to call locker room talk. We'd finish a game, and yeah, Baffa has, again, I was speaking to Rua about this earlier. Baffa used to be at the heights of selling out Wembley, being sponsored by Budweiser, having ridiculous names in the league, and that isn't the same. It's not crazy to say Baffa isn't where it used to be, and I don't think it will. I don't know if it will get back to that stage, if I'm honest. And we basically used to have.
It's down to us, though. It's down to us to get it back there.
I mean, again, and that's what X's and O's was about. Essentially, we wanted to basically promote and spread the awareness of UK American football, because the average person only thinks that it's either rugby or they think that we don't play it over here. And so we'd finish a game, be in the locker room, a changing room, whichever it is, home or away, and we'd have these conversations. Oh man, the ref what's that ref doing? That call was wrong, or this, that, we should have run that play. Why didn't we do this? You didn't make that tackle. You didn't do your job. And essentially we were like, we know what the whole of Britball feels, and we know what the whole of Britball is saying, but there's nobody else saying it. No one's putting it out there for people to discuss, people to debate on, people to almost make Baffa aware that this is what the ground level people were saying, and this is what we need you guys to do. So I think one of the guys, I think it was Solanke maybe, or Charles even, was like, why don't we start a podcast? Essentially like that. Why don't we start a podcast and let's have these conversations and let's put it out there for everyone to hear. So we started in one of the guys, Paris. We started in his cousin's front room. All 8 of us got to the house. We all brought food and drink, having a good time. We had like all the equipment, but we had no idea what we were doing. So we recorded an episode, and when we listened back to it, it was trash. It was like you couldn't. I don't think you could even hear what we were saying, like quite literally. So we binned that. And then Solanke, or he goes by Charles, one of the guys was like, look, if we're going to do this properly, let's book a studio and do it properly. That way, we can record, but we can have the final piece that looks and sounds good, as opposed to what we're trying to do ourselves. Pay the money, get the studio, let's do it. So we went down that route, rented the studio in Ladbroke Grove. People probably seen that studio. A lot of people do their podcasts in this studio. It's quite a popular studio if you know who else uses it. Yeah. So that became my thing. Every 2 weeks, I can't remember, maybe every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, sometimes every week, we'd have guests on the show. At the start, it was just us, and we would chop up what happened the week before in Baffa, talk about certain teams, talk about Blitz, talk about Olympians, the Ravens, everything.
So you were talking about the history of the game as well.
We were talking about the history of the game as well, because there was never a session where we couldn't talk about something. There was never a session. There was enough Baffa news and issues as it was, but then there was everything else in terms of we got deep. I mean, this is jumping down the line a bit. We won. We were nominated for Best UK Sports Podcast, which was insane to me, because
I did see that. I did see that on your channel for sure.
2020, I think it was. But and I think it's a testament, because we did more than just talk about UK American football. We went deeper and talked about mental health. Like Daddy on the show was sharing his personal stories, Parish, and the fact of the matter is, we all play sport, but we're all human. Everyone's got issues, man. We're not robots. So we sit here and talk about the sport. Yeah. And we thought it was kind of our duty as well. If we're appealing to a lot of the UK nation, men and women, boys and girls, mums and dads, about this contact sport that we all love and play, then we have a duty to also share what kind of can come with it as well. And also just shed a light on the other side, just to be a bit more humane. So, we did X's and O's for a while, 3-4 years solidly, built great relationships with people like NFL UK, who we still have good relationships with now. Essentially, I think they saw what we were trying to do in terms of promoting the game in the UK. And personally, there's no better way to do that than to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. We were the guys on the ground. So we were the guys who could, say, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. This is what the league is talking about. And we were feeding that directly to Baffa. I mean, they could see everything that we were doing. They even, they even promoted some of our stuff. But it got to a point where I kind of wanted to go a different way personally. And I wanted to do more NFL kind of content, because I mean, if I was to describe myself, I just always want more, I suppose, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just always want more.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
And I wanted. I mean, like I said, I got 2 kids. I had still got a full-time job. I mean, I work for a family business, which allows me to kind of be flexible at times, which is good, because obviously I can go to events, I can film, I can record, but still, I'm being out of the house as often as I was, being up till the AM, like editing, doing this kind of stuff. It takes a proper toll on your body, man. Proper toll. Like, you're still doing your Monday 9 to 5 and everything else on top of it. Annual leave, you're at an event. Weekend, you're at an event where you should be like with your family or with your kids, etc., etc. So that a lot of that was going on. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna.
How do you find that balance, though? How do you balance the Georgian sports stuff, family, job? You must have a very, very understanding wife. Very understanding.
Absolutely.
Wife.
So I think it's a good point. I think
Because
I'm someone who,
because I know how much time it takes to do this.
Yeah.
The editing, the due diligence, the preparation, the scheduling, being on time on site.
You said it there, preparation. I think that's one of the key things in terms of how do I get the balance. Number one, I think working for a family business is, for me, give me a lot of benefit in terms of I can juggle things if I kind of need to juggle things. Number two, so my wife has her own business and she is absolutely killing it. She does like kids
and
artwork.
She understands.
Yeah. She's got a kids artwork business where she designs kids artwork that goes in their room. So a bit alphabet prints, animals, learning perspectives. And she started it just before lockdown because she basically had a look at what was out there, didn't like what was out there, and thought she could do better, and she did do better. So she's got her own website, Etsy store, sells on Not on the High Street and all these different places. She's got print labs around the world. Like, it's crazy. So she understands because she used to have to be in her little office 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., doing all these printing whilst I'm inside, maybe tending to the kids and things like that. So she understands the mindset. So the balance, it's difficult. Don't get me wrong. I won't lie. I had a lot of sleepless nights where I'm busy creating content, thinking of how we can do content. I'm in bed on my phone when you shouldn't be, technically. In bed on my phone, drumming up new ideas, thinking of who I can contact next for this, who I can network with, who I can speak to give me advice, what kind of content I can target for this person, that person. My brain is always going.
Yeah.
So it is hard for sure, but I think if you want something enough, you'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And then George on Sports is, again, so X's and O's was more UK American football. George on Sports was me wanting to do more, essentially. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more NFL. And I wanted to do things kind of differently, the way that I wanted to do things. So I was like, all right, let me venture out a bit more. We built great networks by doing X's and O's, and I started to have people kind of approach me in terms of coming to events, doing different pieces of content. And I just thought to myself, well, I mean, I was thinking about this in the first place, and now I kind of like I've been given a sign almost to go and chase that. So I basically did just that. I started another Instagram page, started covering more NFL, and I'm quite, like I mentioned again before we were recording, if you throw enough stuff or shit, excuse the language, at the wall, something's going to stick.
Something will stick. Yeah, I get it.
And so I'm very much, if you don't venture out, you have no idea what could have been. So it's risky, yes, but I'm willing to take the chance because I want to know what if. And it just went from there. It just snowballed. I tried to put a plan together. I invested in myself in terms of knowledge. I'm a massive fan of the NFL anyway, so that helps. And because I played for 11 years, that helps too.
Yeah. And you got family. You got family too.
Yeah.
Family, bro. Does Roel know about that?
I don't know. No, I don't think you do actually. So first and foremost, my father-in-law, who his name is George as well. He played running back too. And he's got these newspaper clippings on his wall where he played for Medway Mustangs. Yeah. And he was running back, but he was a return man as well because he was basically just unstoppable. He'd catch the ball on the 1 yard line and run for a 100-yard TD the other side, and like over and over and over again. So there was that, which I didn't know until I met my wife, obviously. Yeah. And then my wife's cousin, Jermaine Allen.
What?
Who obviously, yeah.
The Casper is
Jermaine Allen. Yeah, the Jermaine Allen.
So for those out there who doesn't know who Jermaine Allen is, Jermaine Allen is a British American football player that went from amateur American football, played NFL Europe, hooked on with New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah, with the Saints
Bears, I think, as well.
and yeah, the Bears as well. Yeah, great running back. Great running back.
He so yeah, I mean, you're right. Small world, because
Small world.
for my father-in-law to have played and been the guy that he was, and Jermaine, we all played the same position.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bloodline kind of thing.
You lost the backs, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, well,
I won't
listen,
lie.
we've all got something in common, because at one point when Royal first started, he was a running back. You know what I mean?
There you go.
We all got it, man. We all got it.
But then I jumped on the dark side, because you know what? I was not sitting on a bench for no one, bro. Nobody. I just wanted to play.
Reps.
I just wanted to play. I wasn't about to sit on the bench. I can't. Nah, that was not my thing. I wasn't there. Like we spoke earlier, I'm not about sitting there just having a kit on. Yeah, I play right now. I want to put the work in, and that's always been me. To be fair,
that's
okay. So George, just going, I guess just going back to your football career. I mean, you played running back. I mean, I don't know if you played a 2-back set, 1-back set. But what? Let's talk a bit about your football, man. What was your favorite plays, man? Was you an inside zone, outside zone type of guy?
I'm an in zone, a trap, power, ISO. So I used to compare myself, and I was nowhere near a guy, but Steven Jackson. That's the kind of running Steven Jackson.
Oh, Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson, like
number
ram,
39,
like a back rim ram. So that's how I kind of picture in my third eye when I'd vision myself on the field when the inside zone is called, or the trap is called, or power right. I'm thinking, all right, cool. This is exactly what I'm going to do. So in terms of my playing career, it was again kind of accidental, because it was meant to be rugby, but it went to American football. 3 years at Brighton. I actually started out as a wide receiver.
I was just going to say, what about?
He has some hands. He has some hands.
I started out as a wide receiver.
Okay.
I don't know what was going on. I was a lot slimmer back then, because I played winger. I played on the wing at rugby, so I thought that's a kind of similar position.
Yeah.
Until I got quite a bad groin injury halfway through my rookie year, and I took some subs at running back, and I was like, okay, yeah, this feels like something I want to do. So began playing running back, put on a little bit of size, and for me, it's the aggression of the position. I'm a contact sport guy. Like if rugby, American football, now I kickbox, all contact sport. And for me, Sundays, putting on the pads and the helmet and putting on my tape, strapping everything up and getting on that field, it's just different gravy, man. It's a different focus altogether.
Get it?
And knowing that I was going up against a guy, like even training drills, like Oklahoma's and everything contact related, for me, it was like, that's go time. So favorite plays, trap plays where it can either be me and the linebacker in the hole, that's it. I love the power plays, the inside zones, the ISOs as well. I like a sweep as well, outside zone, because I'm 6 foot, roughly 15 stone, but I've got a bit of speed about me. So for me, that's why I was able to, I think.
So what's the 40 time, bro? What's
the credentials, man?
What's the 40 time? I want to know what the 40 time is, bro.
What's the 40? What's the standing jump? What's the bench?
Do you know what? My vertical was pretty good. I never actually measured any of that, truth be told. I did 140, but this was in my last year. I think it was like this was, I think, when I was trying to get to GB, which I never got to play for GB, but that was one point, and I think I was like, this was terrible. This was like a 4.7, 4.6. It was bad at that point, but that was my way. That was on my way kind of out of the sport. But yeah, for me,
it's all about the start with when it comes to the 40, and people don't understand that you can't, like if you ever watched like Ben Johnson come out the start. Out the gates, it's all about that first initial, keeping your head down, just powering through. People tend to stand when they do the 40, they stand straight up.
Stand up, yeah.
And that's all their speed is just gone.
There's definitely a technique to running.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Without a shadow of a doubt. We had to learn how to run 40s. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It's an art to it. I mean, and you do it right, you obviously can better your time.
So what year was you playing? Was you playing in the 90s? Was you playing in 2010? When was you playing?
2010. I started in 2010 with Brighton Tsunami. Played there for 4 years. And then I graduated from uni 2013. So then I moved to Kent immediately after uni, and then started playing for the Kent Exiles from 2013 for the next 5 years, so 2018.
Okay, so you was on the sidelines when I was on the sidelines at the London Olympians
Oh wow, yeah,
when we were playing when we were in Division One. So it was
right,
me, Mike Dunson,
yeah,
God rest his soul, Neil.
Neil.
man,
Neil was the head coach at the
I
time.
know,
Yeah,
man.
and Mike was the OC. I was an assistant OC and running backs coach.
Hmm.
Um, Neil was obviously the head coach. Yeah, we had a blast there, man. But I
Yeah,
remember we had some run-ins with Kent boy, some close counters, and you were on the other sidelines.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
never.
So nah, but the
So
thing
you,
is, when I joined in 2010, we were in Div 2. And then
yeah,
we basically every year we went up. Apart from the last 2 years, we took us 2 attempts to get into the Prem. I think it was 2 attempts, but
yeah,
like I was telling Royal earlier before we started recording, we had some. I mean, the O's obviously everyone's had their time, right? In terms of the
Mm.
teams, the Ravens, the Olympians, followed by the Blitz, who dominated everybody, and then the Warriors, who
that's the Warriors who's got the bad.
Yeah.
who were doing it, but obviously lost the title last season to the
Mm,
Manchester Titans. But
mm.
um,
We're gonna get there in a minute. I want your thoughts on something, but we'll get there in a minute.
All right. And then so I went to the Kent Exiles after that. Great time there, and like I was saying, it was great to be able to go from Div 2 all the way to the Prem. That's one thing I wanted to do.
Mm.
At that point, a lot of the guys at X's and O's, a lot of the guys we were looking to move teams. We wanted to try our hand at like another level.
Yeah.
So a few guys went to the Blitz. A few guys went to the Olympians actually a couple
Oh yeah,
years
Emeka came over
before I
there,
left.
man.
That's
Selenko
right.
came.
Yep.
What's it?
Hanif was already there. Bam
Hanif
Bam.
was there.
Hanif was there.
Is it Tinker? Is it Tinker?
Tinker, that's it.
Tinker was
And
there.
Paris as well.
Oh yeah, wide receiver Paris. Yeah. He
Wide
was.
receiver, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
basically everybody bounced and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna give them one more year. I stayed with the Exiles and we
You
made
should
it.
have
We made it
bounced,
up.
bro. You should have bounced.
I know. I was
You
having
should-
conversations. The funny thing is I was having
if
conversations
you
with
had
it
ever
might coach,
bounced,
do you know what?
you
It
would.
might have
I
even
would.
been you. I was having conversations with O's coaches after the game. Neo was one of them, and the
Yeah,
other guy it might have actually been you
could have
because we were
been.
looking at your running back situation. Because I don't know if you had Andy at that time. Did you have Andy at that time? There's
When we
Andy
had
also? No,
and Andy Owusu was definitely in my stable. Definitely in my stable. He was there.
you had a
Yeah.
good number of good backs, and I felt like if I joined, we could have made something nice. But I thought, let me just stay at Kent. You know, I started here.
You
Let's
you
make it to
decided
the Prem.
you decided to stay because you were worried you might not get no game time. And you thought, right, let me just stay back then. I'll be number one. I'll be that number one team. You know what I mean? I'll be getting the reps. I'll be touching the ball 25, 30 times a game. I'll be
Do you-
cool. But if I come to the Olympians, because I'm sure you must have heard about how we trained in the Olympians because it was we were old school. We were old
But
school coaches.
you could see that because you could see in the results that you guys were getting. You
Yeah.
could see that. And for me, the one thing that I feel like Kent never had during that time was the physical aggression to beat up on another team, to run a guy over. And that was kind of my whole stance. And in fact, there was a game we played against the O's at Blackheath Rugby Club, I think it is.
Hold on, is this 2017? Listen, I got game tape.
Ooh,
I
I
got
don't know
game
what. Do you
tape.
know what? I don't
I'm
know
gonna have
what
to
year
go.
it
I'm
was.
gonna have to go into my archives and have a look for you. What number did you wear?
26,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it was against the
Watch
O's.
your face.
Honestly, and this game was hyped. Like the guys were going off before
Yeah.
the game. It was tense. So we called the power play, and I was like, "Yeah, this is it. I'm going to the house." Like they called a power play. I can't remember what happened before that, but I was upbeat. I was like, "Yeah, well, we need to." I think because you guys had previously been beating us over and over and over and over and over, and we were just sick of it. Called this play. I don't know who it was. He was in coverage. I think the safety might have come down, or it might have been a corner blitz. But I think we called the inside zone a power. Straight into the A gap, and I don't know who it was, but there was a guy that met me there, and literally, I must have taken his soul. I must have absolutely taken his soul because I trucked him so hard, and I think I just fell short at the 1 yard line at that point. But I trucked him so hard, and
Look
that's
at
what I
it.
was. You know, sometimes you're waiting for that spark in the game to
Yeah.
light you up,
Yeah.
and
Sometimes
that for me,
that's what it was.
Gee, let me
hear
ask you a question now. Going back to the fact that the reason why I play the sport, the reason why Hutch played the sport, did you play? You went into rugby. Did you go into rugby to release anything, or you went into rugby because you like the game? Where I went into the sport, I needed that because of what was happening in my household. I needed that avenue to
Oh,
find me,
Yeah.
and as bad as it might sound, it was a license to hit someone without getting in trouble. You took up rugby,
Yeah.
which is completely different. I respect them for playing that the sport because you have to, because it's different. It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
Where American football now has changed. So back in when I was playing it, you could run full pelt and tackle someone, and that was cool. It's slightly changed now where you have to learn how to tackle, blah blah blah. But I played the game because it was somewhere for me to release me,
Yeah.
bring me back down to a level playing field where I could act normal
Yeah.
throughout my daily life. What was the reason you played? Why did you go into rugby? Why did you find American football? Do you tell me on that?
Do you know what? It's a great question, and you've actually I think I've only just realized something in this moment of doing this podcast that I've never realized in my 30 years of life. So, my first sport was football or soccer, if you like, and
Yeah.
I did it for like a few sessions, and I got fed up of all the diving and all that, and I was like, look, this isn't for me. But you mentioned something, because I think it was the fact that I could play a contact sport like rugby. Well, number one, I saw there's a guy called Ugo Monye who played for England, and he was part of the Six Nations squad. And I actually saw him playing one day and was like, if I get to run into people and just carry a ball doing it, that's got to be the easiest thing to do. That's what my mind said to me. So I was like, okay. But at the same time, you mentioned it being an outlet. I genuinely think it was an outlet to be physical and assert some aggression. And for me, when I discovered rugby, I was like, okay, that's an outlet where I can do both. I can be physical and, like you say, not necessarily be in the wrong for it,
Charge for
but
it,
also,
yeah.
but at the same time, I can be running out there, kind of expressing myself and enjoying myself. So I think American football, like I said, the plan was to continue to play rugby. I wasn't necessarily thinking about American football. Bearing in mind, I'm from North London, right? Holloway, Cali, King's Cross, Islington.
Yeah.
And the Blitz play at Market Road.
Yeah.
They train at Market Road and play in Finchley Park.
Yeah.
So for years, I was seeing this team with helmets, and I used to think, what is this? I play rugby, but what are these guys doing with helmets on? Anyway, but once I found American football, I think just like what you said, I quickly realized not only can I have fun doing this, but the physical element and where that comes from, I'm not entirely sure. I think it stems from wanting to have more of an outlet, like you say. It's something you hear quite a bit. It's like a release valve, right? You go and play. The guys say they let loose, they turn up, and they play a good game, etc., etc. And I do think it's both an outlet in terms of wanting to release that kind of pent up frustration and aggression in a controlled sporting manner, but also doing it knowing that it can lead to somewhere. And for me, it came in a number of different pathways. You play the sport, but you also got to work out to play the sport, right? You can't play the sport without working out.
Yeah, without doubt.
And I enjoyed that naturally. So for me, it was like, okay, so if I work out in this way, it's going to help me in this sport. So for me, it was a no brainer. You get the social element as well. Like, it's a brotherhood. Prime example, yourself and Hutch, right? We're sitting here doing this episode, and you guys go way back, and you got stories about when you played together, and you only got those stories because it's what you did.
Yeah.
So you get that bond, that connection as well with the guys that you're essentially putting your body on the line for, because that's what happens on the gridiron, right? And then number three, I think just the joy. It was fun. Like, imagine putting on kit and hyping yourself up and knowing your playbook. There's another guy on the other side of the field who's wanting to take your helmet off. Like, there's when you step onto the field, there's no other feeling when it's back to when it's they do the coin toss, whatever, and the ref blows the whistle and off you go. There's no other. The adrenaline is unmatched. So you put all them things together.
The adrenaline is just pumping and flying, and I mentioned something like this in one of the podcasts before about when I used to, my mentality of playing the game was like, okay, I know there's 11 guys out there that want to decapitate me because they know exactly how I'm going to bring it, and
Yeah.
that just fired me up. And like whenever I had the ball in my hands, it just energized me, bro. It just energized me to another level. And you know, every game I used to go out and I used to look in the mirror and say to myself, I'm the best player out there.
Mm.
Even though I might have not been, that was my mentality. And I think that was one of my biggest drivers to playing the game, and obviously getting the benefits out of it too.
Mm.
The release of the stress, the camaraderie across
Mm-hmm.
the team players, you know, the ride or die for your teammates because you're right, because it's about the brotherhood, you know, and winning and winning. Do you know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Mm.
Which kind of like leads me to my next question for you. It's about, what's the highest honor that you've got? What's your best accolade that you have won in American football? And it doesn't
Oh,
necessarily have to be silver or gold or anything like that. It could be a game. It could be, it could be
it's a
something
good
along
question.
those lines.
It's a good question. I don't know. I've got like on my phone. I've got an album of like highlights of certain games that I always like to go back and watch.
Spit them out, bro. Spit them out.
Yeah. I'm just
Give
trying
us
to
give
think
us
about. I
give us
mean, the
give us the
Olympians one.
top
I
two,
never
man.
forget that one because I think number one is probably we had a game with Sussex Thunder. I think John Moore was a head coach at the time, who I think is now the GB under-19 head coach. I think. And Sussex have always. This is when I was at Kent. Sussex were kind of like our nemesis. A lot of the seasons we could just never beat them, and they'd always be the reasons why we don't go up. And we had this game away to Sussex, and I had family come down, and my wife had come down, my in-laws had come down, friends had come down because it was a big game. We'd win, I think we guaranteed we were going up, and we'd lose, and we would eliminate Sussex from. I think we might have even relegated them. And it was tense. There was a lot on this game, being so close. Kent and Sussex, like a lot of people know each other. There's a lot of players have gone back, played for each team, so there's a lot of sort of old school rivalry.
Yeah.
And it was one of them slugfest games where there was myself and the guy called Dan Excel, running back, who was from Bath Uni, Bath Killer Bees. He's one of the greatest running backs I've ever seen play the sport. His name kind of tells you Dan Excel, like he's running back. He was insane, but there was so much riding on that game, and every play, everyone from offense, defense was you could see they were putting everything on the line. And for me, there was a moment towards the end of the game where I think we had driven the ball down the field, clock was running out, and we called a run play. And I remember that I had a run earlier in that drive, and I was absolutely gassed. And I had, I had nothing left, and I was like, wow, we're about to run another play, and I know it's going to be a run play because we were inside the 5. And they called the run play, and I was thinking to myself, look, just get over that line and secure it. Get over that line, secure the win. We're going up. And the feeling, the thought of me potentially doing that whilst I'm in the backfield waiting for the quarterback to go set hut was it felt like my whole life flashed before me. So I got the ball, run over the line. I think I had to run over a guy to get over the line. Made the line. I was on the floor gasping for air, but I realized obviously having got that touchdown, that was it. And honestly, like the feel, I think there's photos of us running onto the field. Like Hanif, you mentioned Hanif. He had just come from the O's because the O's had quite a bad. I think he went. Did you win a game that year? I'm not sure what happened, but there was kind of.
What year are we talking?
This was. It's got to be 2018, 2017, 2018. I'm not sure.
Right.
But the O's went a bad way, and Hanif had come. This is when he had just made the switch. So for him, he'd gone from the O's where something had happened and it wasn't functioning quite well.
Right.
To the Exiles, and we had a great season, and we had just won this game, and he in his first season with us, was experiencing all this glory, the joy. But for me to score that touchdown was for me one of my best memories.
I hear that.
Oh man, it's just crazy. I'm even going all the way back to uni from when I first took reps at running back, and again had family come down to watch. I ain't going to use that one. I'm going to use another one. I'm going to use Hornets. You know London Hornets?
London Hornets, yeah.
So we had
some battles with the Hornets, boy. Before we went up to the Prem, we had some battles with the Hornets, man.
Yeah, they were good. And what I mean when I say about teams not having the aggression, the Hornets had all of it.
They brung it. I think the only thing that I can say about the Hornets, I think what beat the Hornets was the Hornets themselves with regards to discipline on the sideline. I think
Correct.
that team, when we were playing them, you know, after we'd finished playing them, we were on a meal. We were on a mission to try and talk to
Yeah.
some of them players to come to the Olympians because we
Yeah.
saw some talent there, bro. We
Yeah.
saw some
There was.
nice young talent that we thought that if we could get them into our team,
Mhm.
we could really do some things with the under Olympians. But they, the discipline side of things
Yeah.
was
And
was
that was
was a problem,
that was
and
a
that's
big.
that and that's
Yeah.
something and that's something that I want to actually want to talk to you about because it kind of like takes me to our next question. So the days when when I was playing or I was playing, let's just talk about let's call it the 90s, right? In the 90s, um, there was a lot of discipline across teams, okay, and teams they defenses brought it, they brung it on the field, yeah,
Mm.
and on the sidelines, sometimes it will pop off, whatever, but it was kept within the game,
Yeah.
okay. And I've noticed as the years have gone on, with regard to British American football, things have changed. So over the years of the involvement of British American football, BAFA, I want to ask you, what changes have you seen, right, compared to when you were playing in comparison to today? Because there are
Mhm.
things like the speed of the game,
We had
velocity,
a conversation earlier
velocity of
too.
the game, the discipline in the game, the
Mhm.
work ethic off the field to prepare yourself to play the game. Now these points that I'm talking about are things that we have seen in the game today.
Mhm.
What about yourself? What have you seen from when you were playing to going to watch a game today?
So, kind of similar to what myself, and Barol were saying
Mm,
earlier, but I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. All the points that you mentioned, some in particular, in terms of the why reason for playing the sport. And if you are going to play the sport, you need to also entertain all the other things that come with playing the sport, and that's playbook, working out, the passion, the actually wanting to win and the wanting to get better. Um, but yeah, I've seen. What I would say is, it feels like to me with every generation comes less enthusiasm or want for the sport in terms
mm,
of playing it in the UK. Because I look at the people that played before me. There's a guy at Brighton called Oliver Bishop. Again, he was never running back, but also played linebacker, played for GB, done a number of great things. A blitz legend, essentially.
mm,
Um, and he was a couple generations ahead of me at Brighton. And the caliber of team that I saw before me when I was at uni, even when I was at Kent, the caliber of team that I saw before me was different. Guys were more hungry for it. They were just locked in, and
mm.
I think there was a generation of ballers where balling is just what they did. They wherever they went, be it UK, abroad, Europe, or the US, wherever they went, they put on a show and they did what they were supposed to do. And I just don't think you see that anymore, essentially. And to be honest, if you do see it, those handful of guys, they're not playing in the UK, they're playing in Europe,
Right?
because the game have advanced so much more in Europe as opposed to the UK.
Yeah,
Um, and
100%.
with the opportunities that are there, you can't blame the guys who want to be the upper echelon of running back. Glenn Tunga, I had him on my show a couple of weeks ago.
Mm,
He played at Southampton Stags, and then he was always from track and field. He's an athlete through and through, and he then went on to play for Blitz, and then played in Europe for a number of teams. Been to various combines, Italian, Canadian, and he's been playing in the European League of Football, the newly formed European League of Football, of maybe 3 or 4 years now.
mm,
And obviously, you're paid to play it out there in Europe.
mm, mm.
So I think you just get the caliber of guys who really want to play the sport and take it to the next level and actually potentially make something from it. They go to where the attraction is, and right now it's not necessarily in the UK. It's in Europe.
Right.
So, like yourself, you guys have said, you've seen different forms of the sport maybe dwindle slightly. Like Rorel, we said earlier, you went to watch a game and you were in shock.
Shock was an understatement, bro. Understatement. But George, let me ask you a question. You're just saying that, but are play in your eye? Do you think they're hungry to play the game? Because that's, I mean,
if I'm
when I was playing, I was hungry.
All right.
And I did whatever I had to do to play. You know, like you said, I took myself to the gym. I made myself better.
yeah.
I wanted to play that game. You know, I didn't tell you about my story when I went to college in the US, but I wanted to play the game so bad and learn the game so bad to the point where I was on one meal a day and going to college. That's how bad I wanted to play. Now, do you think that the kids in the UK are built like that?
I'd say there definitely are some, 100%. And I know a lot of them, I see a lot of them. There are a handful of them. But generally, I think it's a hard question to answer because, yes, there are quite a few, I'd probably say. Knowing from my 11 years of playing and then being involved within the sport from a grassroots level in terms of the local teams that play, how the league is run, I would say that the majority of UK players, this is maybe just strictly Baffa as opposed to Bucks, because Uniball seems to be popping off. They seem to have a completely different product over there. But in terms of senior ball, I don't think it is there. I don't think that same hunger. In fact, if I think about guys like yourself, Neo, rest his soul, Coach Jeremy Sims, like everybody who played the sport at that, Jermaine Allen's, that level that they played at, again, you could see the hunger was there, right? You just mentioned that the levels you were willing to take it. Victor X, Mohammed X, like you could see the levels that they were going to want to play in this sport. And I don't think it's the same. In fact, you can see it isn't the same. It's nowhere near the same. There are a handful of guys. There are guys that want to be that and still are putting in the levels that putting in the work required to get to that level. But I wouldn't say generally, absolutely not. I mean, look at Europe. They're so much further ahead of us in every way, shape, or form when it comes to the sport. Every way. Yet we've been going for longer. It doesn't make sense.
George, that's 100%. You know, British American football in this country has been going, you know, since the mid 80s, bro. Clean over 35 years. All right. And when me and Roel were balling, when we did semi-pro stuff, we're talking about like in 2000. So we're talking about 23 years ago, right?
Yeah.
In Germany, it was popping off. And again, there was a lot of UK players back in those days, you know, the UK, Great Britain, with regards to American football, players were getting picked up left, right, and centre in European teams. I'm telling you, from the so-called Prem division, players were just playing in the Prem. Then there's flying over, going, you know, 1 hour west into Germany, Finland, Spain, France, playing on a contract and coming back. Yeah. Today, the way I look at it, and this is my opinion, there are way more pathways to play at a higher level than there was 20 years ago.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So there's way more pathways to do that. And I scratch my head and think to myself, why aren't these guys wanting to aspire to do that? What are they playing for today? When you look at the British game today, what are the likes of the Warriors playing for? What are the Blitz playing for? Yes, they're playing for the British American Football Championship. But then what? What about going to that next level? What about playing in Europe? Because playing in Europe, you know, it is classed as semi-professional when you're talking about playing those teams like in the Bundesliga, etc. Because you've got college players playing over there. You've got players that are being paid to play over there. Okay, and you know, Jeremy mentioned it on our podcast the other day about kids saying, "Are there any peas in it? Do you get?" You know what I mean? And because they say no, it's like, well, child, why am I doing that? And they don't see the bigger picture. They don't see the other attributes American football brings to the table. So I think it's a mentality thing, guys. I think it is because, like I've just said, I don't want to sound like a scratch record, but I personally feel that there's way more pathways today to play professional or semi-pro American football than there ever has been.
Without a doubt. No one disagrees with that. You know, no one at all. Because at the end of the day, if you took just a little bit of work effort, a little bit of discipline, you could be on one of them pathways.
Yeah.
But you're just riding on. Oh, I'm playing for the Warriors. They're the best in the country. Is that all you want, bro? Is that all you want? You could go to the next level if you worked a little bit harder.
So, Hutch, you said something there, and honestly, when I speak to the guys now, we say these same things, right? So you got the NFL Academy, which is both education and a chance to go to the play ball in the States, right? You see guys being signed to JUCO teams, Div 1, Power 5s. It's happening. You've got guys at Colorado Buffaloes, Temple Owls, Tennessee. Like it's a working, living, breathing product, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that was around how many years ago, can you just imagine, like you guys are saying, the opportunities that you'd have had to go and play this sport at that level open to you just like that?
What do you think what do you think if those, like you're saying, if those pathways were available back then, what do you think that would have done with regard to the awareness of British American football in this country today?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would have done a lot of what it needs now in terms of we are here, we play the sport, and we do have the serious athletes who want to be at that next level. But all the time, it's only now that you're starting to see these academies pop up. These teams, these foundations, where there are so many pathways. You said it to get you to that next level, and they work. They're great. That's what the sport is needed. But they've come at a point where myself, you guys, the guys that I speak to are like, oh man, if we would have had those opportunities, then you know what, who knows what would have happened. But with the kind of dedication and passion for the sport that we all equally share, you apply that to these kind of pathways where you're actually being given a key to make it through this door, to make it to overseas. Yeah, you'd bite someone's hand off for that.
Correct.
I mean, you think?
Oh, sorry,
sorry.
Yeah, because you're getting an education. You're getting an education too. I'm saying, which no one can take away from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you graduated, and it's a two-way approach. And I'm not speaking to the converted here, but it's to them roadman out there that don't understand these pathways that are out there, that they can use their athletic ability to leverage their academic aspirations. And this is one of the main reasons why we're doing Ballaz In Da Middle, because we want to raise the awareness and
you think
share the love to let them know about the pathways that are out there today. Sorry, Ro.
You think back in the day, you had to win a final, a European final, to get a shot to go to Florida State, like my man Hutch did. Those doors are open now. You know, but when we was playing, you think if someone threw Florida State at me back in the day, bro, I would have jumped on it in a heartbeat, bro. that you know what I mean?
I hear that.
It was only one spot for the VIP player, one spot. You understand? But now there's so many opportunities for these players to go, but they don't want to work for it.
I think where the UK where we've not been great at keeping up the appearances, like I said, we used to be sponsored by a whole Budweiser. Like that's serious sponsorship.
And
Coca-Cola
and Budweiser. Right. Yeah.
So think about that's where the sport used to be. So everyone who's taken part in the sport, generation after generation after generation, there's a bunch of us who have just got used to mediocrity almost. We've just got used to, that happens in the league because that's how the league is. Maybe there's a miss and ref. That's how the league is. There's issues with subs. That's how the league is. Like this pitch isn't great enough. That's how you become accustomed to that. So I think what's happened is putting the guys who want to achieve the next level aside. You've got the general public of people who play American football in the UK who have become so used to that way of thinking that I almost feel like you're kind of not conditioned, but you're kind of on the mindset of, well, it's not great in the first place, so I'm not really going to bother to try and get that to the next level.
Bro.
Do you see what I mean? Like,
you just settle in.
You're settling. You've got those guys who will, like I said, the Bishops. There's a wide receiver for the who was at uni with me, who went to the Warriors, Romaine Jackson, one of the best wide receivers I've ever been in the presence of. Those guys, the upper echelons, they'll always find a way to go and do that. But the general, I feel like UK public, and I mean, there's an argument to say, if that's what they want to do, just settle and just play at that level, that's fine. But there's a bunch of us who want to do more. But the general one, I just feel like where they've been so not conditioned, but so used to the norm, the norm, which exactly. Which isn't great. You look at everywhere else is progressing. That it almost tweaks your mindset for those who are on the borderline of thinking, do I take this seriously? Do I not? Because you can tell an athlete when you see one. You can see that you can see a baller the moment you put a ball in their hand, or you can see a baller from the way they dress, even from the way they play on the field, compared to someone who's playing for different. Do you know what I mean? Like it is what it is.
That was my motto, bro. Dress good, play good.
That's it. It's the thing though. Like they all say it. Dion says it. Like
play good.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sure.
Look, it's big time players make big time plays in big time games. Like they. It's
well,
just.
George,
It's
well,
just.
George, I got a question for you though. But the thing is, if Pete Ackley was on this call today, right? What would you tell him with regards to your short-term plan?
Go again. I lost you there, Hutch.
Sorry, did you hear me?
No, go again.
Okay. So if Pete Ackley was on this call and we had one question to ask him, and the question was this: how do we change this? How do we get this back? How do we promote? How do we get the interest back in the game within 24 months? What's your plan? How do you do it?
So this is kind of the guy, myself, Solanke, Emeka, Paris, Tinker, Charles, all of us. This is the conversation that we would have almost every day, and it forms part of the reason why we kept going for so long as well, because we were actually genuinely wanting to change that perception. We wanted to bring it back to the glory days. And for me, I think the answer starts with the bottom, because as much as you've got people at the top trying to come up with solutions, the sport is so, I don't want to say backwards, but the sport is so behind in this country that you need it to start from the bottom, from the guys and the men and the women who are actually playing the sport upwards. Because there's only so much that the top can do to perhaps connect with the people who are playing at their local club on a Tuesday night and, want to spread. So for me, it was outlets like X's and O's. That's what our vision was almost like. We are out here playing the sport. We know what people are thinking. We know what people are feeling. Let us, promote the sport here in the UK and bring it back to the days of what it was. And that was a lot of that was highlighting events. So we would go and film teams who have never been filmed or put online before ever. No one's ever gone down there to do that, because why would they? But that's some of the stuff that we did. We'd promote teams that weren't getting any promotion, bring people on a show that, nobody knows that we're playing over here. All of a sudden you start to hear about guests who are playing the sport in the UK. Some of them make it to Europe. Some of them go to the NFL. Some of them go to Division 1 teams. And they've come from the UK. If you begin to spread that message a bit more, you never know who's going to see the content, number one, but you begin to spread that message, all of a sudden there's a buzz about the UK and American football. They're coaching up these products, or they're able to produce this, all because there's an interest back in the sport. But personally, I don't feel like that strictly comes from the top. They can strategize and put plans together, but without the rumblings, if you like, of the people on the ground who play every week and are still paying to play, then you got no hope. And we saw ourselves, if I'm honest, as the bridge between the players and BAFA, if you like. And we were the glue, if that makes sense. We were the ones who could help bring the sport back. Because BAFA, no one's silly. BAFA have got a bad history. Like, they got a lot of stuff that people don't respect, and people, as a result, some people just hate BAFA. They just hate the league. There's no, sometimes you can get some of them things that some people say that about Kanye West. That they just hate BAFA because they know about the history, and the history ain't great, right? You're talking about things that happened that should never have happened, and if you're BAFA, you're trying to recover. All these years, you're trying to earn the trust back of the people who play, but the people who play are at the bottom. The men and women who play the sport, the kids, they're at the bottom of this food chain. It's them you need to convince before you can convince anybody else. And that was where we kind of saw ourselves. But it's a huge job. It's a big job.
It's those players that were going through it back in the day that are now coaches that you got to try and convince. I get that, because I've heard of one or two online
conversations,
seminars, BAFA seminars, and what you're talking about is exactly that. It's trying to win the trust of those coaches of today, to try and change the mindset, because it's a massive piece of work to do for BAFA to do. And you know, they've obviously they've changed the guard in the last 3 to 5 years. Then they've got a brand new board. They're trying to, you know, do things correctly with regards to sponsorship and making themselves attractive to sponsors. That shit takes time. Yeah. But whilst that takes time, the shift, the rotation of it is slow.
Yeah.
And until
Very
you know,
slow.
exactly, and until the operational people on the ground start to see those benefits, it's going to be a challenge for BAFA. And that's what
Because they don't believe because they're not
believe.
seeing. They need to see, and they're not seeing. They're not seeing anything changing. They're just seeing talk, and they don't see nothing moving forward. But my man's still talking and telling them this is his plan. But they don't see anything else.
Listen,
you know,
sorry, go on.
That game we went to, the grass was dry as. Bro, it was ridiculous. The field shouldn't even be like that, bro.
Grass won't even cut properly to the right level.
No.
And, you know, there's some games I've been to, I'm not going to call any coaches' names out, but the frustrations and, you know, just listening to them, they are deflated, and with regards to BAFA. But what drives them is the game.
The love of the game. But that's going to run out soon.
That's what drives them.
You see what you just said there, bro. We've discussed, again, me and the guys, we talk about BAFA till the cows come home, man. Like we would almost surmise, and I put this to you guys actually. Where do you see BAFA in the next 5 years? Where do you see the state of the UK American football game in the next 5 years? Because I know where I see it.
Right, it has to change massively. I mean, you know, I don't even think, as much as they're saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that, something has to change. Something different has to change. It's not about talk. We're going to do this. We're going to do. No, people need to see something happening for it to get better. When you don't see nothing happening, no one ain't going to trust you in doing nothing. And they don't. And right now, they can't see anything. You're talking a good talk, but you're not walking a walk. Because, like Hutch just said, he spoke to someone a couple of weeks ago, and they're not happy. You know, it's all good and well, people giving out their money, but nothing's changing. You're asking the teams to still pay their fees and blah, 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 but nothing's moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to get frustrating for them. Sorry, I've forgotten you. Go ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. You know, my spin on this, right, is taking a step back and looking at this geographically across all pillars of American football, not just adult football, you know, women's football, flag football, the GB programs, right? And let's just start with the GB programs. When I played for the GB, right, you know, back in in the 90s and the noughties, etc. Looking at the way we looked then to looking at the GB team today, just by looking at them, they are kitted out. They look uniform. They look like a professional team. Okay,
yeah,
so
for sure.
I can see that there's funding going to the GB programs, right? There is. You know, then when you look at women's American football, you know, I hang my hat on them on women's football because I'm so proud of the girls and what they have done in the last, you know, let's just say 36 months. Let's just be realistic. Last 36 months.
Yeah, they're balling.
To where they are. They're balling. They're balling. And, you know, I can see funding and things happening there. Okay. But with regards to adult American football, I don't see no change. I don't see the change what I'm seeing in women's American football and the GB programs in adult football. I don't see it yet.
And you know what the next program they're going to fund is?
It's going to be flag
football.
It's going to be flag.
Because the minute that hits the Olympics, that will be the next big thing. Everyone from the minute that gets in the Olympics, everyone's going to jump on that platform because everyone's going to now want to do it.
Flag football's already there, man. It's already there. It's already there. It's just difficult. Like that. for me to answer that 5-year question, I feel like I said the same thing 5 years ago. I was like, where I thought we would be in is where we're still at, personally, because
Well, in
you
those
mentioned,
different areas of American football, do you think we're still in the same place?
yeah, 5 years ago when I said to myself, I think when I was just leaving the game, I was like, I had my opinions based on everything we said at X's and O's, everything that we'd been promised, everything that hadn't happened to date, and I guess, like you said, still hasn't actually happened. Nothing has shown me otherwise. I haven't seen it. Like you're saying, right? I haven't seen it. And you said it earlier. You have to. BAFA has to be it's got to be it's got to be attractive, right? In order for it to get that funding, get that sponsorship. So you need to offer something presentable, something watchable. The reason why we're not going to get a team in the ELF is because we can't facilitate a stadium. We can't pack it out to a certain number of people. We can't bring that. We don't have the entertainment package. We don't.
Yeah, me and Hutch said this. It's logistics is not where are you going to put it.
Yeah, there's too much red tape.
Yeah,
too much red tape.
Guys, I don't know.
Got I don't think it will happen.
I don't know. I don't know, because I think an ELF franchise can work here, because you're talking about what, a 40-minute flight to Paris to play the Paris team.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about an hour to play the German teams. Okay, it takes just as long as for you to jump on a coach and go up to Scotland. Well, actually, it takes longer to go up to Scotland.
It takes longer.
You see what I'm saying? So are there stadiums around in London or on the south coast? Yes, there is.
Yeah, do you know what, Hutch? I don't think it's that. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is we
funding.
can't.
It's the funding which is the issue, because I know the ELF, each team, they have to pump in a large amount of money year on year to make that work. Yeah,
I don't think it would work in London though, Hutch. To be fair,
I don't think it would.
I don't think with regards to the location of where the team's going to be based. I don't know about that, but if you're asking me if there's a team that can work in this country in the ELF that can compete in ELF, I think so.
It would have to be up north
in this country. Do we have the borders in this country to compete at that level? I think yes, we do.
Oh yeah, I would say so for sure. There is definitely, and that's what I mean. That crop who they eye at that level, they're not in the UK no more. Quite frankly, they're playing in Europe. They're playing in Europe.
Correct. So if there was a franchise here, those players potentially will flock back.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
they would.
Don't get me wrong.
They would.
I'd love it.
But they would. But then they lose their money changes, doesn't it? Because now they homegrown and not a European, not international player.
Yeah. That too.
So a lot of them will not want to come back because, hold on a minute, I'm getting paid this here. But if I come back and play my own country, I'm now reducing. No, they're not going to do that, bro.
That's a good point. Because when you're over there, your class is an E, right, or an A.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. That's a good point. But at the same time, that you're gonna have a nucleus of players that can play at that level. I'm gonna want to play at that level. Because
they can't move aboard, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think is the answer? What do you guys think? Obviously, we know it needs to change. That's a fact. Everybody knows that, and we're still waiting for that to happen. But what would the both of you say you feel is a key need or something that again needs to happen in order for the whole thing to change?
Let me just start off. I think if they wanted to change, instead of the people above just coming up with a plan, they need to listen. And they're not listening. They hear, but they're not listening. They're not taking on what these coaches are talking about. They're not if they sit and listen to most of these head coaches in this country, then I think they would move forward. But they hear them, but they're not listening to them.
I think there needs to be more. I think there needs to be more focus on the adult game, first and foremost. Proven focus on the adult game. Okay.
Like the GFL.
Something along those lines. There has to be a super league of some sort. May it be 6 teams. May it be 4 teams. Geographically based all the way up and down. Great Britain. Right. there has to be funding. There has to be obviously to put a camera in front of it. It has to look like good football, right? So there has to be funding for these teams to look good. So you can put the banners around the stadium, and there has to be also a massive marketing plan around this to drive.
That's the product. That's what you need to
drive
That's what
the
you
product.
need.
That's what they need to do, and this could easily happen in 24 months. It can easily happen in 24 months. But what I think BAFA have to do, they have to get the buy-in from the coaches, from teams, from the players, because if they don't get the buy-in from them, no one ain't going to go to this. No one ain't going to go to it. And until players and coaches start to see this happening, I don't see how it's going to get any better.
That's why I think when you say, I'm listening to you, and that makes a whole bunch of sense. But then they're looking at it like, hold on a minute. We could put all. Right now, they've got they've got stuff that's working. The GB women's, they're working.
Yeah.
The flag football don't cost a lot of money for them to fund, so they're trying to push that. They're thinking, hold on, the men's league, the adult league, sorry, that's going to take a lot of work. So why don't we just concentrate on these two here, push these two forward, and then later down the road, when these are moving forward and making some kind of money, to help the men's, the adults.
Yeah,
they will fund that. But right now, we can work on these. One, that's not cost. The flag not going to cost us a lot. The women are already doing their thing for the last 36 months. Why don't we concentrate on that? That's what's happening. Because at the end of the day, it's not costing them a lot of money because that already looks good in people's eyes. Where this does, where this one doesn't look good. That's just what I see looking from the outside.
I think the other thing as well is a lot of people who work for BAFA are volunteers. It's all volunteering. And to run an efficient, well-oiled machine of a sporting business doesn't run.
No one ain't trying to work for free.
But exactly, that's it. And when you look at, again, it's just someone needs to break the cycle and just do something, because at the minute there's a perception of BAFA and people carry that perception very, very strongly. When you look at history and prior dealings and you think, well, why is this league like this? Why are we not progressing? Every other country around us in Europe is progressing. Every other country, bar the UK. How many years now? How many years?
But the cycle's still going, though. That's the thing about it.
Yeah.
As much as they said it's changing, the cycle is still going. No one can't see no change apart from two pillars.
I don't know.
Right,
I mean,
and that thing can't. Nothing holds up. Two pillars can't hold up everything,
But you know what? I want to change. I want to go completely left hand here and go right back to you, George. Right? Because we can chop this up all night. This conversation, this subject, all night. And get ourselves wound up and etc. You know what I mean? But I want to spin it back to you, George. Right? I can see you wearing. Is that a Colts top?
Yes, indeed.
Right,
it's a Colts fan, bro.
Is it a Colts top?
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay, so it's a Colts top.
So basically,
where does that come from, man? Why the Colts? It's got to be either to do with the edge,
Dungy or Dungy.
Marshall. It's got to be Marshall, or it's got to be Peyton. It's one of
none.
Wow.
So my story with the Colts is kind of a crazy one. Basically, I started playing the game Madden, the video game.
Yeah.
Years ago. I picked up, I put it in. I think I'd seen a few games. I'd seen one of the Super Bowls, I think. And obviously, like I said, I've got the Blitz who train by me every day. Every weekend, sorry. So I put the Madden in. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get into the sport. This was like maybe 15 years ago or something. I don't know. And I was like, the first team that comes up, that's it. That's going to be my team. The very first team that shows up. It just so happened to be this was the Manning era. And my guy was tearing it up. Him and Reggie, they would get it done.
Reggie
So
Wayne.
coach for the first team. Coach for the first team that came
Reggie
up.
was nice, boy.
Boy, Reggie was good. Reggie
Yeah,
was good.
he was nice.
So obviously
You can't slip on Marvin though. Marvin was right up
of
there
course,
too.
Marvin was
Yeah,
good.
but they had the 1-2 punch, bro. They had the
That's
1-2
it.
punch.
Yeah, Dallas Clark tight end. I mean, we had the guys.
Oh yeah.
It
The
was
good
a
old
great
Dallas
team,
boy.
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like because I know a lot of people who I asked them how they picked their team, and some people quite literally just went to look up who the previous Super Bowl winner was, and gone with that. I just literally randomly picked whoever come up first, and it was the Colts. No prior knowledge. I didn't know who Manning was at the time. I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, it's genuine. The thing is, you don't find Colts fans. You do not find Colts fans. They're not a team. We're not a high market team. We're not a Green Bay. We're not a San Francisco. We ain't Las Vegas. So no one really thinks about the Colts like that, especially now that we've not been at that point in our game for so many years. But now we've got Anthony Richardson. Maybe that changes. But yeah, mine's random. Colts struggled a bit. It's difficult. It's like being an Arsenal fan with Colts. It's struggle. It's honestly,
the sore subject completely.
Trust me. And I'm from North London. I used to listen to games outside my window, so I know the pain is real.
Man said Arsenal fan, you know.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
My heart this year it was on their heart. Yeah, we're taking it home. We're winning it.
Yeah, I know,
yes, we're bringing it home.
I know.
They just
So listen to this though. So in your I'm gonna say short tenure because I know you've got a whole load of years left with regards to your digital content creation and social media, etc. But in your opinion, though, right, who was that player or coach or football person that made you feel nervous as hell to interview because of who they were? Who was that person that was like made you like, oh, man?
Let me think, because I've had that quite a bit. It's mad because when you get in front of these people, although they might just be a coach or a player, I mean, if anything, the players were easier to break through because you'd ask them a question and it'd be related to something about a play call, and they'd be like, you'd only know that if you played, so you have a connection.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Saints head coach, I think he got fired. Who was the Saints head coach last season? I can't remember. When they came over to London. I forget his name. His name escapes me. But the Saints, was it Dennis Allen? I think it might have been. They came to, obviously they played here last year.
Yeah.
So I went down to a media day, and it was quite intimate. It was a really small room. The NFL Network presenter Stacey Dales was there, and we was all basically everyone getting our questions in, and they just flown. So one of the teams, they come over like a week before, immediately after their Sunday night game, they'll fly to the UK, so they'll have a week to prepare, acclimatise, get used to the time. And then the other team normally flies like 1 or 2 days before. I think they have the option, but in this case, the Saints flew to London a couple of days before the game, which is madness, you think, right? So I think it was Dennis Allen, head coach for the Saints. So he came up to the podium, and he was just cranky as hell. The guy didn't want to be there. And he was giving people one-word answers. And I was like, damn, this is going to be hard. And I like to do my research. So I'll find things to ask that the media reporters next to me who work for Sky or whatever, they're going to ask about injuries and about, if this guy's going to play or how was your flight. I'm doing my research. I'm going to ask him something that's going to wake him up. And they're going to be like, the only way you knew that is because you did research on me. I like to ask those kind of questions so I can capture the room. And I was thinking, damn, I can't ask any of these questions because he's just going to look at me and say, I don't want to answer that. He was in such a mood.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him, but at the same time, they have to do the media, so they have to be there. It's their obligation. And I was looking through my list thinking, damn, what can I ask? And it was going around the room. It was getting to me. I was thinking, crap, I don't know what I'm going to say. And I had my phone out. I was filming because obviously I'm trying to get the content, but I want to ask a question as well.
Yeah.
And I must have asked some question. It was a good question. And he kind of just looked at me and kind of looked through my soul a little bit. Yeah, he they hold the little board and they stand up there, and he just turned his head and looked at me, and it felt like he looked at me for 5 or 6 seconds before he answered my question, and he gave me a one-line answer and just looked away and went to the next person. But the look he gave me, it basically said, I don't want to answer that question. Why are you asking me that question? I was just thinking, wow, I can't blame you. Like they're Aggie, but I was a bit confused because they have the option to fly out the same time as the team and be here for a week to acclimatize, get used to the time. But
especially
I
New
think they
Orleans.
might have.
New Orleans is a little deeper, isn't it?
Yeah, no one saying. So I was, Daniel Salen. So he was frosty. He was mad frosty. There's probably some more as well. It's because it's weird. You see these people on your TV screens, on your phone screens, probably now or tablets, and when you come into their presence, it's kind of it's weird because it's like, oh wow, I'm actually in front of this person, but now I've got to bring them back down from the pedestal that I had them on because I got to ask them a question and have a genuine conversation. So it's weird balancing the two, not trying to be a fan, but almost being a fan, but not being too much of a fan.
Yeah, professional,
straight composed. Yeah. But when you get it right, like honestly, I got a story about Mark Ingram. We was at, so again, the Saints had to come over, and Mark Ingram he came out to do his media. And as soon as he come out, I was like, oh, big trust. And he looked at me and spotted me. So he was like, okay, you're obviously a fan if you know what big trust means. And that was just his nickname. That's what his friends called him on the field. So the moment I said that, I knew I kind of had him. So I could tell that he was locked in. So he got to his stand and he was taking questions. And again, I got onto my phone, look at my notes, and remembered that I did my research a couple of nights before, and he had just hit the 10,000, I think, all-purpose rushing yard mark for the Saints, and I think he moved to number one in the history or something like that.
Okay.
So it came to me, and I was like, congratulations on this achievement. And he was like, I really appreciate you saying that. And then I asked him a question which took him way back, but was relevant to something that happened recently in the league. And he kind of looked at me and was like, how do you even know that? And I was just like, well, that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. I want you to realize that I've put the work in. You know what I mean? So he kind of like he acknowledged me congratulating him, and then he answered my question. And at the end, he was like, "Thank you for asking me that question because it was a great question."
Yeah.
And then the next person goes, "Oh, Mark Ingram, how was your flight? Or how's this injury? They don't want to hear that. They don't care about that."
Yeah.
So anyway, we took a picture when he left. I was like, "Oh, can I get a picture?" He was like, "Yeah." So it's on my Instagram. We took a photo. And then they went out. I came back for the second session. I think they do 2 or 3 in the week where your media can go to. So I went to all of them. And the second day, it was Jameis Winston, Chris Olave, and one of the offensive linemen who were coming out to speak. And behind us was a big tent where all the players were training and like rehydrating and getting snacks and stuff. And I was in the huddle where the media was waiting for Jameis Winston. And I was don't even know Dre 365, one of my another good bro who does NFL content as well, and Sam.
Yeah.
We was all in this huddle, and all of a sudden I see a group of the players leaving the field, coming behind us, going into the tent. So I'm fixated on the stand. Is Jameis coming? Is he not? He comes out, and then someone comes up from behind me, taps me on my shoulder, and I'm thinking, who's interrupting me filming? And I look around and it's Mark Ingram. He'd made his way from the field and noticed my hair because from the day before when I asked him the question, we came over and was like, good to see you again. Like he went out of his own way to come and find me in the huddle where I was in the media to come and say, hey. And that to me was an appreciation of me doing my research to ask him a question, to make him feel like home, and for him to be like, yeah, I'll speak to you on a different kind of level. And that was great.
That's good, man.
That's a good little story there, because it's about, when these players, from my experience, of playing professional football, when American players come to this country, they are well out of their comfort zone, out of their comfort zone. And I remember when we were playing, some players didn't really want to venture out by themselves because they just weren't sure. People spoke differently. The cars were driving the wrong way. Everything was smaller. The food didn't taste right. They just weren't very comfortable. And them identifying themselves with people that know about them, they latch onto you. Yeah. So, Rawal, I'm sure Rawal can agree with me when I say this. When we were playing, a lot of Americans used us as guides. Do you know what I mean? Because they just weren't comfortable with
no doubt,
with the environment. Just, I mean, so I get exactly what you're talking about. With you did your research, you asked him that question straight away. You strike a chord with him because he's gonna be like, yeah, this guy knows a little bit about me. He's all right in comparison.
He's comfortable.
In comparison to how's that injury? How was the flight? And do you know
Honestly,
what I mean?
Man.
What do you think? What's your prediction for the game today? Sort of thing.
Yeah. Them questions are just, And I get it, because some of them have to tick a box. They've got to go there, ask these questions so they can put it in their write-up. But I'm going there from a completely different angle of, I want you to know that, like, I'm invested in this. I'm not just here. I'm just not a number. I'm more than that. So
And
that's how I try to
and
go about it.
and football. You played
Exactly.
football.
Exactly.
You know the language. You know the terminology.
Yeah.
You feel me? So when you speak to someone like that with an English accent to an American professional person, American football person, may that be a coach, may that be a player, may that be a physio, straight away it's like, well, wow, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different, right?
It
And that's
is.
how they look at it. Yeah.
So, G, on you playing American football, what have you taken from football into your career now? Because obviously you played for like 10 years, 10 years. What have you taken from playing into your media career?
Good question. Good question.
You know what? That's a great question.
Good question.
That's a really, really good question. What have I taken from? So I played for 11 years, and now I've been doing Jordan Sports. I think it'd be 2 years. I think 2 years in October, something like that. That's a really good question. What have I taken?
George, I can answer. I can answer one of those questions because I've just answered that question literally like a minute ago. You've taken the American football game to the sport. You've taken the terminology. You understand the game. You know it from a strategic perspective. You can have those conversations. Do you see what I'm saying?
Do you know what? Yeah,
you've taken all of that.
It's an enabler, right? So it was great. Those 11 years were great, and I would never change any of that. But I've been able to take, you're right, been able to take that and kind of manipulate it and use it for something different. And yeah, I think that's a really good point. Actually, I didn't look at it that way, but you're right. Yeah, because doing what I'm doing now, the fact that I played makes it easier. The fact that I get the terminology, like you say, makes it easier. And the fact that I can speak to someone who's in a particular field, be it NFL, Europe, ELF, and be able to say, okay, I do this, but I also played. It's like having the knowledge and being able to back it up.
Sure.
I've done the 11 years.
You could sit down. You could go. Sorry, bro. You could go sit down with Adrian James or Marshall Falk and have a conversation about okay, they're top NFL, Hall of Famers, etc. Right, but you can have those conversations about football because you understand.
Yeah.
Whereas a sports journalist, etc., can't go as deep.
Hence why they ask those questions that they were asking.
They can't go as deep.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you've got that, which is great.
Yeah. No, I never thought about it that way.
So like myself, I don't know, and Hutch, I have a particular routine I do every day. It doesn't, I've taken my discipline and stuff that I used to do when I was playing into my day-to-day life now. I do the same thing day in, day out. It's very hard to change that, Do I get out? I don't change that. I'm pretty much in the same pattern every day. Do you have you taken anything from playing the game into your life along those lines, or you just live life?
Yeah, I think accountability as well, because when you play the sport, it's a mad sport. I mean, you look at the level of aggression, the level of contact, and that's what we seek, really and truly. I mean, that's what we seek. That's what the sport comes with. That is the sport. But if you don't put in the work, so to speak, it will show up on Sunday. So you need to hold yourself accountable. And I think when you realize, I mean, I've had so many moments in games where you could say some people have let the team down for whatever reason. They've done X, Y, and Z, or they haven't been accountable, which affects the whole team. And that could easily lead to like a loss, which could otherwise gain you promotion. So accountability for sure, in terms of if there's something I want to achieve, there's something I want to do, I have to hold myself accountable to be able to get to that. And if I'm not doing the minor things that help me do the major things, then I need to obviously correct that. So being accountable 100%, because if you played the sport and you weren't accountable in terms of dedicating yourself in the playbook, going to the gym, putting in the extra hours, then you probably weren't playing at all. You probably weren't even getting played, because, I mean, unless you were at, there are certain teams that you could say feeder teams, so they like to call them. But this isn't a sport to just play for the sake of playing it. I mean, otherwise you just go out there and get hurt. So you had to be accountable, and
Exactly.
that's one thing I've definitely
Exactly.
carried through.
But George, unfortunately, what you're saying is what I'm seeing today. What I'm seeing today is players not putting in that work, not putting in the preparation, not doing the prerequisite work for the season, much less preparing
Yeah,
week on week. Do you see what I'm saying? And I'm seeing the injuries. I'm
yeah,
seeing players lasting 1 quarter or 2 quarters and they're limping off the field because they are not physically ready for the pounding.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the percentage of players that are like that, in my eyes, and this is just my opinion, is larger than when I was playing. It's larger.
yeah,
You do
yeah.
have that. You do have players on the field that can play 5 quarters. They can play 5 quarters,
Hmm.
but it's small. It's a minor. It's a minority now. Before it used to be the majority. It's the minority
Mm,
now. Um,
yeah,
and again, these things drive each other. Again, what are these players aspiring to? You know, there's no
yeah.
peas in it. You know, the, the excuses open. The list goes on and on and on. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So yeah,
Well, it's definitely not the same. It isn't. Anyone who's played the sport, I don't know, plus 10, 15 years will tell you it's not the same.
it's
It's just not.
it's a shame. And bro, I'm sure you know this, man. I'm preaching to the converted. Just jump on a flight, man. Just fly east for an hour. Just land in
Mm,
Germany. Go to a game. Watch the EFL. You know,
yeah,
or even when the EFL weren't there, watch the Bundesliga.
yeah.
And
The GFL, they're
the
great
GFL
products.
exactly.
Great
When the big
products.
teams would meet, like the Hamburgs and the
Hmm.
Braunschweigs and the Colognes,
Yeah.
you'd have like
Yeah,
10, 15,000 at those games. You know,
yeah.
it's just
Berlin Rebels.
mm,
There's
it's
Potsdam.
just
There's a lot
really
of
it's really frustrating for my generation. I'm being selfish here, but it's really frustrating to see where we
yeah,
are today with British American football. And I'm
yeah. I mean
hoping
that's and I
the
get that.
likes of
I
us,
get that.
the likes of us, can, how can I say,
Spark,
Change that, man.
spark a
continue
little
to
flame,
raise the
bro.
awareness of this game,
Yeah,
and hopefully try and turn it around, man. Hopefully.
That's all we could
for
do
sure.
is keep when we light that flame, just keep it burning,
Mm.
and
That's
eventually
it,
we
man.
get
I
bigger and
mean,
bigger.
because could you just imagine it? It was to because you think about it, right? That was all them years ago. Imagine what it could have been now. What it could
Yeah,
have been if it just continued. Like, yeah,
Man,
there's no telling, but because there's no doubt we got the talent. We're sending guys to the NFL. Like, come on, there's talent. Of course there is,
it's here.
but there's no infrastructure. So, and it's got to come from the ground up. If it doesn't even, I mean, quite frankly, like I said, the adult game doesn't work well enough on the ground right now. So
No,
we're
it
st- we're
doesn't.
still we're
Unfortunately,
still we're still at a very early stage after even after all these years. It's mad actually. Me just saying it out loud sounds crazy because we were at the start when they changed the board and we were some drivers behind that. We met with both Pete and Nicole and the upper echelons, if you like.
mm,
Um, and we really thought, I mean, I thought, yeah, this is it. It's going to change, man. And obviously COVID hit, which didn't help nobody,
yeah,
but that affected everybody. People were still finding ways to bounce back. And
yeah.
I mean, I ain't play. I stopped playing in 2021, 2 years ago, and still, what has changed? I'm still seeing things on Facebook and things about the way games are, the way games are run, things that are not going
Yeah.
right. It's just insane. It's so I don't know,
Like I
man.
said, though, I mean, I,
It's not
I,
great.
I truly believe that. I do believe that when you look at the whole piece of British American football in this country, there are pillars that we
Yeah.
are seeing some form of injection of a change. There is. It's,
Oh yeah.
yeah, there
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
some
for
change.
sure. Them
And
elements, yeah,
we have to put that comes from BAFA, that comes from the board, that comes from what they're doing. Yeah. However,
mm.
you know, I'm gonna be selfish here. I'm from the adult football, and that's the piece that I want to see some change.
yeah,
We're seeing it in women's, we're seeing it in excuse me, we're seeing it with flag football, we're seeing it at the national programs. Come on, man, when are we going to see it in men's football? Sorry, adult football. When are we going to start seeing it there?
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
gonna
no,
take time.
it'd be good to see.
Hmm.
It'd be good to see, and I get the aspect. I mean, we all at this point we get it takes time because obviously, again, we've said it many times. You got to build the product. You got to give. There has to be something that's attractive, and at the minute, it's not attractive. So
No, not at all.
and nobody's touching that. So
Yeah.
but just how much time, man? Because I don't know how long.
It's soon run out.
Honestly, that's where I'm starting to think now because
I,
when I think about it, I just think, damn, you guys have played, I've played my 11 years. The guys, other people that I know have played there 5-10 years, and what's changed? Nothing yet.
Not at all, man.
Mm.
Wow. Listen, like I said, man. You know what? We could go on and on about about that part of the, about American football.
Mm.
We could just keep on digging and digging and digging.
Definitely.
Will
it's
we
a
come
big
up
shame.
Will we come up with a solution?
I'm
sure we could.
If not,
but would they listen? Is another story.
Don't know.
Let's just agree, guys. Let's just agree to continue to doing what we're doing. Let's just
without a doubt. That's all we can. That's all we can do.
Of the game, 5 pillars of the game. Let's just continue to do that, and let's see where we can go.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's it, for sure.